Peace. This is Jamal Robinson with 720astrology.com. Today I want to do a follow-up video to the Katt Williams video I posted a few days ago. But before I start, I want to say this, that I say a lot of things in that video, and one of them is that it is not lost to me that we're dealing with a quote unquote celebrity, and that the word etymologically points to one who drives and leads cattle or a herd of animals. I also mentioned in the video that we're not quite sure if there is someone behind the veil who's working the puppet strings, putting the battery in Katt Williams' back to come out with all this stuff right now. And what may seem as a contradiction to that, I mentioned in the video that he is a genius, which he is. But on the same token, I by no means look up to Katt Williams, nor do I see him as a crusader or some type of leader for me. And the reason that I am giving this clarification, if you will, is that the purpose of this video is to try to introduce the concept of the trickster, not as though I'm the one who's actually introducing it. This is an ancient concept. It's an archetypal expression, the trickster. And the trickster is complex. And the trickster thus cannot be seen in a linear or from a linear perspective, and not viewed from a one-sided slant. Meaning you can acknowledge that someone is a genius while also acknowledging that this person is horribly flawed, which is the reality for humanity in itself, which is what the trickster, one of the things that the trickster shows. Okay, so this video was inspired ultimately by the interview that Katt Williams had with Shannon Sharpe, which set the internet ablaze. All right. But I started thinking. I looked at three prominent people right now: Dave Chappelle, Katt Williams, Kanye West. And from time to time, one of these characters will pop up in the recommendeds or just in the social media space. They'll pop up with something controversial. Dave Chappelle, we know his comedy now has become like this crusade around the whole, we'll say, the community, because, 2024 censorship is going to be one of the themes that increases. Then you have Katt Williams, who is on this crusade about exposing people within his space who've done some unscrupulous things, or he's almost making like it's immoral. That what he's judging them about, the immorality, which then would suggest that he is a moral compass. Then you have Kanye West, who always can provide some type of rant when you need some entertainment, similar to Katt Williams, but he goes more specific about, of late, who he says is the problem, or who's behind most of the problems in the world right now. And they're presenting things that 25 years ago people were talking about, 30 years ago, and 20 years ago, where you'd be labeled a tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist. They're now bringing these things out and presenting them as though, it's new. And there are a lot of people who are new to even the concept of thinking. And I'm not saying that to be funny. The average person does not think. They think, but they don't. And so some people are having a sort of awakening, if you will. And I use that word carefully because you wake up in the morning. We put so much value now on the awakening. Well, you get up every morning. If you're alive, you wake up every morning. But countless people waste the day, waste time throughout the day. So the awakening is too much weight been putting on waking up. But there are people who are having this quote unquote awakening. And what it is they're starting to realize that there's been more going on, that there is more to life than what they have relegated themselves to or have been relegated to. So they may see some of these people, these characters, as almost messianic. And so because of that, I want to just clarify where I'm at. I am not a newcomer to thinking. And I don't say that to be egotistical. I say that to set the record straight that Katt Williams is by no means my leader, nor is Dave Chappelle, nor is Kanye West. This is, the stuff that they're regurgitating certain things that were presented decades ago. All right. Now, with that out the way, Dave Chappelle is a Virgo sun. Katt Williams is a Virgo sun. Kanye West is a Gemini sun. What do they have in common? They are ruled, their sun sign is received or ruled by Mercury. And Mercury is a very complex figure when we study him throughout various cultures as he morphs from Thoth in ancient Kemet to Tahuti to Thoth, which was where we get the word thought. From Thoth to Hermes or Hermes also to Mercury. He also coincides with the African deity Elegba, Ishu. Mercury is very complex, and he spans across different cultural and ethnic paradigm. When we look at it from astrology, Mercury is on the surface. He's the rational, conscious thinking. He represents learning, which also indirectly represents teaching. Mercury is commerce. He's communication, and he is commuting because he deals with short distance travel. That ties into Mercury being associated with signposts, because we know the signage is where we would look to get direction as to where we're going. Jupiter in Sagittarius is long distance travel. Mercury is short distance travel and is also information. He provides the information to help us along the long journey. So that's why he would be the signpost. The signpost would also tie into like Legba and Ishu, who would be god of the crossroad. And so we see, I wish I don't have the book. I'll get it. This is a good book to have. It's a 2-volume set. It's The Lost Language of Symbolism. This is volume 2. And in here, I'm going to show you, I don't know if this dates back to medieval times, but here's an example of a picture of the crossroad or signage along the road that is associated with Mercury. I don't know if that shows up, but you notice if you look closer, you can see the twin serpents right here. Okay. That would be the staff of Hermes, the staff of Tahuti, and that would also double as the staff of Mercury. And it has been superimposed or taken over now by the Western medical church or tradition, where they have removed, in some instances, one of the serpents or the snakes. In some representations, you'll have both, and it has become the staff that represents the medical field, the staff of Caduceus, the twin snakes. And so there it doubles as a signpost, which is leading the way. So we could deduce then that the physician is supposed to be leading the way to health. Wink, wink. But that's an example of Mercury as providing information that continues or promotes the continuation of the journey. Mercury also is a peacemaker because that same staff can be used to bring things together, to create a sense of harmony. Health, hygiene, is supposed to be cleanliness and also harmony. Homeostasis or wellness, that's what health is supposed to be, a state of being well or in balance. And so Mercury supports that. Again, with bringing things together, Mercury becomes the basis or one of the archetypal pieces that helps form Eros, where we get the word erotica. So now erotica has been sexualized, but erotica really means, in its essence, to join together. So here's more of this complexity of Mercury, the joining together of things, which now ties Mercury into Venus, because Venus comes from the Anuc or the African Ankh. And the Ankh, the Anuc, key consonants N and K. N and K superimposed becomes K and N is knowledge. Knowledge can also, that same combination of N and K, K and N, can also become G and N, as in gnosis. So anytime we have gnosis, knowledge, we're talking about a joining together that produces a new state, a new reality. That is, to have knowledge is to come together. This is why in the Torah, or the first book of the Bible, Genesis, it says when Adam and Eve, if we're going to take them as being actual characters. And so, mythology is multi-layered, because Adam and Eve in essence are not talking about a man and a woman. But if we take it on the mythological, on one level, as man and woman, then we can say that when they join together, it says, and he knew her. So it is talking about a joining. When they came together, that he knew her, which has a deeper meaning than just man and woman. Mercury is a Christ figure. That's one of the secrets of Mercury. He is an extension of the Christ energy. Mercury deals with language, lingua, the tongue, speaking. Well, one of the words to identify the Christ energy was what? Logos, which means word. Mercury is associated with the crossroads, the cross. In the biblical story, Christ is associated with the cross. He goes to the cross, which is the crossroads. And he is considered to be the Logos, or the Word made flesh. In the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So this archetype actually has no beginning, because Creation itself is the result of a thought and the articulation of the thought. So therefore, Mercury has to be part of this, and also this Christ energy, not talking about the anthropomorphized, but the metaphysical energy of both. They are united and linked in a so-called beginning. Now, Mercury is also a trickster. Now, here's where things get chippy, because we tend to think of Christ's energy as good from a religious standpoint, good. But there are hints in the canonized Bible, subtle, but still there. Matthew 10:34. Do not think that I came to bring peace. I came to bring a sword. The peace is the joining together that we've just mentioned about Mercury, which the Christ figure in this storyline, this book, is identifying and said, okay, do not think I came to bring that aspect of this energy. I am that energy, but that's not what I really came. I came to bring a sword. And if you look linguistically, no pun intended, but the word tongue coincides etymologically with the obelisk, the phallus, the male member, and also the female member, which would be the clitoris. It also coincides with the tongue, because the tongue is phallic. If you look at the picture of Kali, the Hindu goddess Kali, who has the tongue exposed, that is not just denoting feminine energy, that is masculine as well. It's a yin and yang picture. But either way, I did not come to bring peace. I came to bring a sword, which coincides with the character being correlated to the word or the logos, because the word needs a tongue to vibrate so that the word can be given life or manifest, so that the word can move from thought to articulation. It needs the tongue. That's the sword. Now, that may not seem to allude to trickster energy, but the trickster in it, the energy of tricksterism, I'm making up a word, in itself is complex, describing a complex energy. The trickster is not just like, oh, you tried to sit down, I pulled your seat out from you and you fail. No, trickster is you think something is just this one way, but it has these many other faces. When I was a little boy, I used to play with the He-Man characters, and one of the characters was many faces, and you could turn his face and these different facial features would show up. That's the complexity of the trickster, which is an energy describing an even more complex energy, because the trickster is just one facet of a complex system, which we call Mercury and its other names. So part of the trick of Mercury is that what you see is not all you get. Although you may see this peaceful healer and bringing people together, because we bring people together through words, through a vision, through the thought that is articulated. We can bring people together. We can heal. He heals with the staff. He shows people the way. But that's not all that Mercury is. Mercury is also deceit. He's also can be a thief. He can be an agent of chaos. He can be a remover of the covers over taboo. He reveals things that, oh, we don't want to deal with. So Mercury has an aspect to him or it of Pluto. If you think about it, in mythology, Mercury travels from the earth to Mount Olympus. So he moves between domains. So he can do a little bit of everything. He can be a little bit of everything. Now, that means that if we've already made a connection between him and the Christ energy, that the Christ energy also has some tricksterism in it because they're one and the same. Now, I want to give some type of reinforcement to what I'm saying. So this, and a lot of people just say this is just some made up mess here because it's not canonized. Well, if you know the history of the canonization of the Christian Bible and how even the character of Jesus even became a man, whereas before the 6th century it was a lamb, and I mean it's just, this stuff is all, the water is very murky. So it's hard to just say, oh, this book is heresy, when these works were not just inspired by one hand. It's a collection of literature. All of these books are collections of literature. So if we can remove the religious lens and change perspective, then we can open up to more stuff. So I present this. This is the lost books of the Bible and the forgotten books of Eden. So these are some of the books that were not canonized, which means they would be tossed out at one of the ecumenical councils. As what they did, they would come together and decide, well, what are we going to leave in and what are we going to toss out? Well, this book is going to give you insight into the infancy and the early childhood of Jesus or the Christ figure. And when you read some of this stuff, you'll see why they had it taken out or removed, or why it was not canonized, which means it was not part of the accepted books in the Bible. So there's one account. I'm going to get to some of these just to show that the character referred to as Jesus possesses, according to this literature, trickster traits. Okay, here's one account. Another time, when the Lord Jesus was coming home in the evening with Joseph, and this is from the Infancy Gospel 1. I think there's an Infancy 2. Yeah, there's an Infancy 1 and 2. This is for Infancy 1. Another time when the Lord Jesus was coming home in the evening with Joseph, he met a boy who ran so hard against him that he threw him down. To whom the Lord Jesus said, as thou hast thrown me down, so shalt thou fall, nor ever rise. And that moment the boy fell down and died. So with Mercury being the trickster, he is a healer, but he's also very vengeful. And I want to give a reference here. This is a great resource to have. Mythical trickster figures. It'll show you some of these different facets. I'm just barely touching the surface. You know, this book again will go into more depth about the trickster energy, especially around surrounding Mercury. And so we find that he is vengeful. He can be a healer, but he'll also act out in the most harsh and punitive way if he's crossed or wronged. All right. Now that aspect of Jesus is not presented in the canonized Bible. Here's another one, which shows how, this is talking about his intelligence, but watch this. They brought him then to a more learned master, who when he saw him said, say Aleph. And when he had said Aleph, the master bade him pronounce Bet, to which the Lord Jesus replied, tell me first the meaning of the letter Aleph, and then I will pronounce Bet. But his master, when he lift up his hand to whip him, had his hand presently withered, and he died. Then said Joseph to Saint Mary, henceforth we will not allow him to go out of the house, for everyone who displeases him is killed. This is talking about the little young Jesus born in a manger. He shows signs of having another side. Remember, the trickster energy is not just about, it's not about pulling silly pranks, which that can be part of it too. That's Mercury too. But it's also the complexity that I am not just one thing. And if we want to use good and bad, I'm not just good. I do things that would appear to be bad. But what it does is two things. It forces us to tap into a timeline that is above what we're on, because that means that things that may appear this way in this timeline may have a greater purpose in a higher timeline. The other thing is that Mercury is part of what's called the Hegelian dialectic. In numerology, it comes down to the 1, the 2, and then the 3. The 3 is the perfection. It's the affinity. So Mercury creates opposition. Remember, Mercury in Gemini is very dualistic. The twins. So the twin energy is to create the polarity so that two sides can be seen and set against each other. And the collision of those, which is also still tying back to Mercury joining things. She has a complexity. He still joins things, but he's also can be combative. Out of that combativeness, he's actually joining the two sides to bring out a perfection, which is number 3. Number 3 is the affinity of the opposition between 1 and 2. The action, the reception, and then the result of it. So if we go back to the interview that Willie D, if you all who not, Willie D is, which is crazy. Willie D is a member of the Houston rap group, the Ghetto Boys. And it's just so funny now you see Willie D presenting himself as a voice of the people. Other people. I remember 1993 listening to Ghetto Boys, and but either way, people can grow and evolve, I guess. But so Willie D is interviewing Katt Williams, and it's just funny that Willie D, when you knew some of his lyrics, it's so funny that Willie D would be saying to Katt, like, Katt, man, you're a habitual line crosser, and that really peaked in my brain when he said that, line crosser, because Katt Williams is also under the influence of Mercury as a Virgo sun. And so I'm going to go to this book here. I'm going to read something out of here to try to give some context. It says, typically the trickster helps humans adjust by stipulating social boundaries, even if he does so by metonymically. Now, metonymically means basically figuratively. If he does so by metonymically transgressing them, he brings symbolic organization to the personal universe by his many exploits of disassociation. His arms, which initially fight one another, get organized into the primal right versus left cooperation. Likewise, Hermes organizes the social cosmos, working out interconnections among people, boundaries between nations, and realignments of military or political power. Now, do you see the irony here? It says that when this passage begins, it says, typically the trickster helps humans adjust by stipulating social boundaries, even if he does so by metonymically transgressing them. So Willie D tells Katt Williams, you're a habitual line crosser. And here they're describing the trickster as one who will cross the lines to set adequate boundaries. That's the Hegelian dialectic. Problem, reaction, solution. So this thing that I'm talking about is not just Katt Williams. It's all 3 characters I've talked about. Dave Chappelle, Katt Williams, Kanye West. They possess genius. Each of them possesses some form of genius. They all possessed a strong messianic type energy. Why? Because they can galvanize people. Now, by no means are they my Messiah. By no means. I'm I'm my Messiah, first of all. But they possess messianic quality relative to the general populace. They can move people. They will present at different times something that seems very true. They do tell some truth, whether people like it or not. They tell some truth, and the truth that they tell creates opposition. The Hegelian dialectic needs a problem and a reaction. The reaction to the problem is an opposition. Now, here's where things get even more tricky. What if these characters are being directed to even tell some things that have some truth, keywords, some, mixed in with what they're saying? What if someone is driving them with an understanding of how the trickster energy can be utilized? You tell a little bit of truth, you mix it in, you create some controversy and some opposition to establish a new order. A, B plus B equals C. Problem, reaction, solution. So what if there's a recognition of the messianic potentialities within these beings, and that these beings then can, who are celebrities, who move cattle, they can then present some version of truth that stirs the people because they possess some measure of genius, and they create some type of opposing force through stirring up the people. What if there's a force behind who is directing all this so that a new reality can come about? Now, there's the positive. If they say that there's the greater forces, the divine force itself is raising up humanity another octave, which is one of the potentials of right now as we move into Aquarius. But what if there's also another force that can utilize this same energy to prevent the evolution of humanity? What am I trying to say? Pluto is the main actor of 2024. Pluto moves into Aquarius, and 4 personal planets will touch Pluto. The sun, which will move with Pluto into Aquarius, Mercury, Venus, and Mars. They will all touch Pluto. One of those planets is Mercury, which is the center of our discussion. And Mercury, at one level, deals with communication. So what if these celebrities under mercurial influence would now go out here and just, I'm for the people. I'm about the truth, and I'm doing God's work, and I'm going to tell it like it is. I'm not afraid. And the people are so ready for a champion to rise up who can articulate what they've been feeling, and they just don't have the platform to say it. Tell them, Katt. And if you line up with Kanye, tell them, Kanye. Yeah, Dave. But what if they're actually tools that are counterproductive to the cosmically stated and determined and timed evolution of humanity? Pluto is about power on one level, power, control, obsession with power. Mercury is communication. So you get these guys who come out here, and I'm going to tell the truth. What if part of the purpose is to prevent further the speaking of truth? What if things happen on a celebrity level, because that's why they're there, to set the tone, and then it trickles down to the common man and woman to where you can't say anything, and eventually you can't think. As much as we laud the transition into Aquarius, we must be sober about the potential downsides of groupthink, of herd mentality, of collectivism. Everything has a shadow. And so I'm concerned about where things may be going, because humans collectively do not like to think. They like to follow. and they like to feel like they are thinking under their own behest. And the actual musculature that is required to do it, they tend to fold and collapse when the resistance training is necessary to develop that musculature. I'm going to say this, get on my soapbox. If there's anything you found online that piques your interest and you got a couple of dollars, go buy the books now. Sitting around and seeing interesting videos like, oh yeah, that is deep. Oh man, oh, she's woke. Oh wow, spiritual journey, my spirit guides. And look, all that stuff is cool, but listen, go and buy some books. Because whatever happens with this interface or how we communicate this and that, if it goes down, you need to have access to old world knowledge and old world ways of maintaining knowledge and passing it on. Because Aquarius is the internet, amongst other things. And Pluto's moving into that territory. And Pluto tends to bring up ugly things in whatever terrain it moves through. Because ultimately it's tilling the soil. I'll stop there. But this is hopefully a sober introduction into the complexity of the trickster energy, the complexity of Mercury, and the complexity at times of people who are under the influence of Mercury strongly. It's neither good nor bad, but we must see the different facets, because one of the tricks of the trickster is to have you think that everything is one way. For private readings, consultation, coaching, you can connect with me through my website, 720astrology.com. Know the stars to know yourself. Peace.